Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. For today, we'll do an abbreviated video intro. Just first starting off reminding you that today is the financial results webcast being held here at Giga Texas. It'll start at 16:30 Central Standard Time, 17:30 Eastern Standard Time, 14:30 Pacific Standard Time, or 22:30 GMT. So take a look at Tesla Investor Relations for more information. The next item I'd like to discuss is Tesla's release of this rendering and information about expansion at Giga Nevada, with quite a bit of changes that are going to go there. And you can see with this image that Elon greeted the governor of Nevada as well to make this announcement. But I think what most people are interested in relation to Giga Texas is this rendering of the entrance way. And the main reason is the interesting similarity to what we see here today at Giga Texas with this trapezoidal section of the front entrance. Now, there are a few differences that I'd like to point out. First, at Giga Nevada, it looks like it's a reflecting pool. Here at Giga Texas, it looks like it's going to be a concrete structure. You can also see some footings next to it, so it may be covered as well. But the overall shape is very similar. And one other thing I'd like to point out in this rendering of Giga Nevada is note the color of the building. And then here at Giga Texas, we can see that the Cyberberms are being painted white now to match the similar white that we see in that Giga Nevada rendering. And here in this image, you can see the larger Cyberberm near the intersection of the highway and Tesla Road getting painted this morning as well. Now, we've seen the sample colors on Giga Texas on the south end, where it was a darker gray, a lighter gray, and a white. It looks like white may be the selected color. And perhaps Giga Texas overall will be white when it's completed. Finally, let's talk a little bit more about the tree removal and relocation efforts that are going on the east side. As you can see by this image from the 20th of January, this has generated a lot of interest, so I thought I would give a little bit more information and context. Here's the link to the company that is providing this service at the bottom of the screen. You can see their web page here on the left-hand side. The company is called Environmental Design, and they're located in Tomball, Texas, which is just north of Houston, or about 134 miles east of Giga Texas. The process that they're using is called Arbor Lift, which was patented in 2014. This relatively new process is used to relocate giant trees, and the method that they use eliminates the need for large hydraulic cranes or heavy lift trailers or transporters, and at the same time it helps reduce the cost while protecting the trees. And there's an image on the right-hand side of the screen from their website to show the process. It uses an inflation pneumatic bladder underneath a rigid lifting platform, and it's used for the preservation or relocation of heritage trees. And of course, as mentioned, you can see the link at the bottom of the screen. It's also in the video description if you would like to learn more from the company. I would also like to thank my Patreon, Sammy K, for researching this information and providing the links for this company. I hope that you found this discussion and information helpful. So now let's get ready to go out and fly at Giga Texas and see what's going on today. A special thank you to all of my outstanding Patreons for your continued encouragement and support. Patreon members get access to hundreds of high-resolution photos, previews of the future material, and direct dialogue with me. If you would like to support my channel, please consider becoming a patron using this link, which is also in the video description. Please also consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. I hope you enjoyed that longer view across the highway to the west side, where the new parking lot and the warehouse on wheels is located, and also here on the south end as well. You can see some of the changes on the material staging just south of the Cyberpond, where most of the materials closest to the pond have been removed, and more are being stacked on the south side of the road. This also gives you a good view of this south end. You'll note a lot of the water. It's because we had some pretty strong thunderstorms and rain came through the area yesterday. Now, as I continue to fly to the north along the west side, this gives you a higher altitude view of how this side appears today and some of the roof with the solar panels. But particularly what I want to do is stop here and show you some of the changes and progress going on with the main entrance of Giga Texas. I put this inset for the Giga Nevada Rendering just to remind you what we discussed at the intro of the similarities. Similar shape, but concrete here at Giga Texas, it looks like a reflecting pool over at Giga Nevada, and a few other detailed differences as well. So let's get a little bit closer and see what the work is today. In this foreground, this is where they are doing what appears to be test sample concrete sections, and also a cement truck getting ready to help support this pump truck, which is actively pouring the concrete into this trapezoidal section, as you can see. And in addition to watching some of the concrete being poured, I'd also just remind you to take a look at the workers just to get a good idea of the scale, because this may not appear as large as it actually is. But a lot of continued work on that trapezoidal section. And another thing, you can see that there's those square, it looks like footings on this side of the trapezoid. There's some on the other side as well, so that may be another difference between here and Giga Nevada, in that there may be some sort of cover or maybe some lights around this particular section. But this trapezoid seems to be a common theme now in at least 2 of the Gigafactories based on that rendering. So let's fly along the west side to the south and take a look at the activity on that end of the building today. It looks like there's some more trench work being done here for some underground utilities. And also the red drills here next to this square section in the asphalt seem to still be a little bit idle, but there has been some drilling work as well. As I fly around this section, this gives you a good idea of how the south end clearing appears. Again, a lot of the rain that came through has kind of ponded this particular section, but they continue to prepare this area for future construction. And this trailer here, I believe, is for the crew or the company that will be doing some of the work. But you can also see some of the blue piping here, and that suggests that we're going to see some water pipe installation soon around this particular area. As I fly a little bit more towards the east section and then turn back around, this just gives you an idea overall of how this south end looks today. And also on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see where that underground water pipe, they're still doing some work to prepare for the connections. Now here on this south end, we see a lot of the Model Ys, more than just white today, which is a nice sign. We've been seeing quite a few white ones, but you'll see that there are cars exiting through that entranceway on the left-hand side of the screen, and more Model Ys getting lined up to be moved over to the east side. And also some activity on this temporary platform, moving a container. Actually, that's a trash container up for that section of the General Assembly. But here's a good view of how the east side of this clearing appears today. And also on the south side, some of the steel and other materials that are being stockpiled. So I'll bring the drone up a little bit higher and give you a different perspective of the overall south end from this side of the building and on this side of the power lines, and just to get an idea of how this is all continuing to transform here today. On the bottom of the screen, and you'll see as I turn around, it looks like they are moving some of that high-density polyethylene or HDPE pipe with that machine near the bottom of the poles. That's interesting because we're also seeing some of that HDPE pipe being fuse welded together on the north end. So that could be related to this entire section because that's where those pipes were pulled underneath the Colorado River about 2 months or so ago. But anyway, let's continue to fly up along the east side towards the north. We'll be taking a look at some of the changes on the new receiving doors that have been installed onto this side of the building. Also see some trenching near that southwest corner of that small parking lot. But here you can see that the concrete on the left has been poured and saw cut. Looks like they're doing some more work right next to the base of the wall. And then this one here, the rebar is still waiting to be installed in that graded section. And then this larger area still has some plumbing to be done before they can put the rebar. But also take a look at all of the castings that have been continued to pile not only on the east side of the casting machine structure, but now well south next to those receiving doors. You can also see this intersection with more of the work to reconfigure it. Some more concrete's been poured and more form work, and we'll get a closer view of that in just a second. But I wanted to pull back and show you this new vehicle testing and staging location where they do some of the supercharging and also some of the drive testing of the vehicles, and some of them still have the car covers on as well. And again, this is where they are installing more of those forms for this intersection reconfiguration as well. I wanted to pop over here with a new car staging and transportation lot. I want to show you not only how active it is, but a combination of what I've seen as far as the number of trucks arriving and departing the site, the number of Model Ys you see here and on the south end and in that testing lot, and also the number of castings. I think that the production rate has definitely increased, probably at least 20% more than it was in December. That would put it somewhere around 3,500 to maybe 3,700 per month, so per week. So we should be hearing soon from Tesla that perhaps Giga Texas is hitting a new production milestone. And I hope that we'll hear that either later today at the financial results meeting or soon via a release from Tesla. But I also noticed that it looks like there's a small machine here. It looks similar to one of the two machines that was stored on the south end by the stamping machine structure. So interesting that they would put it over here. You can see the warehouse on wheels has that lot on the north now has been completely cleared out of vehicles. So I would expect to see this expanding back up to the north in the near future. And on the south end, we see those stainless steel tanks and some of the white tanks as well. I thought I would drop down a little bit here just to show you some of the materials that are being stockpiled in this particular area. Everything from construction materials to some piping, and also it looks like some red and white mounts and racking systems. This is that temporary workshop for some of the steel modification, and there's this clearing that has been recently added in that small area. I also wanted to point out this. These are the temporary wall panels that were installed originally where the receiving doors on the west side have now been expanded, and it looks like they're just storing these panels temporarily on this side until they're either recycled or used otherwise. Let's proceed over towards the battery cathode plant and take a look at some of the progress and changes up here today as well. And probably the most noticeable change is the amount of stored materials and delivered materials right here. Some of those blue containers, most of the wooden containers with the white tops have either been moved inside or next to the building, and it just continues to see more and more materials. I also noticed these being unloaded from the truck, and you can see these kind of open crates. I'm not sure, they almost look like windows, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense here. So something I'll have to try to get a closer look in a future video. The temporary lot here still has that gravel mix on top, but they're not using it yet, so I'm not sure if it's going to be a parking lot or maybe material staging. Looking to the north, you can see some of the changes and materials being stored up in that very large rectangular pasture, and also just how few of the steel materials are left up here now, as most of them have been moved into the new construction on the west side. And there's just still a few little shops some trailers and some other equipment here, but it's definitely thinning out quite a bit. So I'm going to bring the drone in a little bit closer to the building because I want to just give you a good idea of some of the interior fit out that is going on here. It looks like some interior smaller rooms, some HVAC of that silver ducting, and some other materials being installed as well. And that would be very similar to what you would see in the rest of the structure that is going on. Quite a bit going on behind the walls that we unfortunately can't see a whole lot of. And the temporary storage on the left with the equipment that's waiting to be installed into the new building, and some more of these concrete vaults, some more of these white painted pipes, and also the work that's going on with this steel structure with all of the pipe manifolds. I'm going to give you a much closer view in. I'll even zoom in from the drone so you can get an idea of just not only how complex this is with the amount of pipes, but also the amount of work that is being done to get this all fitted out. You can also see some of the pipes are now entering into the building and connecting to this structure as well. So based on the number of pipes on the ground, there's still quite a bit of work left until that is completed. As I turn the drone towards the die shop, you can get an idea of how this continues to expand now to the south. More of the roof decking has been installed. On the west side, you can see that one part of the structure now over the densely stacked pier section, and you can see how that foundation over some more of those piers is starting to transform. It actually looks like there's several different levels within that larger pit now. So that may be a hint as to what kind of foundation and materials or equipment we'll see installed. I'm going to try to move the drone quickly and turn it around as the sun has just popped out over the clouds that was dominating most of the early part of the flight, and so now we're going to get quite a bit different lighting, which is great because this gives you a good view of how the footings on the south end continue to evolve. Some more of those braces in between the footings are evident on both sides, and you can see still there's some forms requiring the rebar to be installed and then more concrete. But as the concrete is curing, you can see the steel is expanding further to the south. In fact, they're adding another column in right now as we're watching. So that's a great sign to see that it's going to be expanding to the south even more in the next couple of days. So by the time I come back, we'll see this structure quite a bit larger. Here you can see some of the blue water pipe now being teed off from the center section between the two buildings and then into the cathode plant proper. And here's another good view of the work going on with this steel structure. Looks like there's some forms for concrete on the ground underneath that structure, so we'll probably be seeing that completed and more equipment installed onto those new footings as well. But I'll turn towards the structure, the die shop. You can get a good sense of how this appears today and how much of the roof decking has been installed as well. And then I'll also give you a top-down view of the footings here, and just to get an idea of just how much of the building still needs to be extended to the south. I'd say it's about 50% of the steel structure is completed now, which is outstanding. As we approach here, what I want to show you is the continued excavation and work for the blue water pipe that will continue off towards the west and then will provide water and some of the fire loop towards the battery cathode complex of structures. And this just is a good view of how that appears today. I'm also going to drop down here just to show you some of the continued work to relocate some of the trees. In the intro, I talked about the company and the process that they're using. And here you can see that they are continuing to work on this particular tree, but more of those trees are also slated for relocation as well. Here is some of the progress on this water detention pond, some more of the stormwater pipe installation, and also this is generally where that water pipe is going to come through to connect to the water main that we discussed at the battery cathode plant. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is the high-density polyethylene or HDPE pipe that's being assembled here, and it will eventually most likely connect down to that southeast corner. This is the crews working on some of the fusion devices. Now what these devices do is they take the two lengths of the HDPE pipe and then they fuse weld them together, and then they become very long segments, as you can see in that curved 3 pipes that they've already finished. And then usually these are installed by doing horizontal drilling underneath the ground and then being pulled through the bore. So I would expect to see that at some point in the near future. I notice this work underneath the power lines. It looks like they're doing some more earthwork, and also in this general area is where some of the conduits that connect to the northeast corner of the casting machine structure come up here, where they will eventually connect to the new power switch yard and also the megapack system. Speaking of which, we've been watching the temporary electrical switch yard here and some of the maintenance that's been done over the last week or so. It looks like this large gray component, which I believe is a transformer, has been had some maintenance done on it and is now being replaced. And then they had that temporary trailer to provide uninterrupted electrical service. So this looks like it's more of a maintenance service than it is for preparing right now for the new electrical switch yard, at least from what I can see at this moment in time. Speaking of which, the new electrical switch yard is continuing to have progress done, particularly with a lot of the wiring that is being installed right now. We still don't see any of the transformers on those 2 concrete pads. Most of the cable tray trenches appear to be completed, and you can see the crews putting in some of the wire into the trench near that control room. And overall, it just looks like a lot of detail work going on right now, so it's hard to see large changes at this point in time, but all of the wiring that is necessary is being installed now to make this system work, which obviously is an important part of the construction of the new electrical switch yard. And this is a good view of it as it sits here today with Giga Texas in the background. As we've discussed, this sort of triangular section of graded earth is eventually going to be made into a rectangle, and this is where the Megapack battery electric storage system will eventually be installed. A little bit of rain has kind of slowed the work there right now. And again, this is a closer up view of this section that we discussed a few minutes ago, where they look like they're either collecting some of these materials for use at the switch yard or also preparing for potentially some electrical connections. You can see here this Cyberberm is very bright now. That's because it was just recently painted white, and we talked about this a little bit in the intro. And on this Cyberberm, part of it has been painted white. In fact, what we're seeing here, but as we get to one of the corners, you'll see that the color changes right there. And you can also see that many of the lights that go around the berm have been taped off, and this crew here is getting ready to begin more of the painting. And if they're painting this white, as we talked about in the intro, that may suggest that white is the color that has been chosen, and perhaps Giga Texas itself will be white when it's completed. Here's just a quick view of the north end of the building with some of the materials that continue to be moved inside, and it looks like more are being moved inside than are being delivered now, so the quantity is continuing to shrink, which is, I take as a very good sign. On the northeast corner of the casting machine structure, again we see a lot of these castings arranged on this end of the building. They don't seem to have changed as far as the quantity or the shape of the ones that are stored here in the last couple of days, so I'm still not sure what those are for. But all the ones you see here are the ones that were used for the production. And as I mentioned earlier, the number of castings here is direct correlation to the production ramp, and I take the fact that there's so many of them as a very positive sign. So anyway, that's the tour of Giga Texas on this 25th of January. This is also, as a reminder, the financial results meeting with quite a bit of potential for some really great announcements and some new information from Tesla. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing that. As always, thank you very much for your support and for watching my videos. I hope that the information presented in the intro and through the video was helpful and puts into context everything that we've seen. Have a great day and rest of the week.